Hello everybody, and welcome back to Path of Exile 2. After a couple of weeks of playing this and several characters already, I wanted to sit down and do a little bit more of an in-depth review of my experience so far in the game. I did a sort of knee-jerk reaction, hot take kind of thing as soon as I finished the campaign with the new content, just because I wanted to get something out with my raw feelings about how I felt after my first time through the campaign. Obviously, you know, there's no real thought or reflection that goes into that when you do that, so that I made it clear at the time that that was just my feelings at the time. Now that I've had more time to play the game, I've been through the campaign a couple more times, I have a couple of interesting builds online. I wanted to go back and talk about the game as it exists right now. I am a casual player, so here I don't do any of like the super crazy pinnacle content. I don't have any super high level characters. I think 2 of my characters are above 80 or something like that. I never really get up into the 90s because it just takes too long and I don't feel like grinding that hard. So take this review for what it is. It is not me talking about, you know, how to be badass at the game, because I'm not. This is a casual's perspective of the game and where it is right now. So the first thing I want to talk about are the builds that I have so that you can see what it is that I've been playing with. This right here was my league starter. It is my Hollow Palm Acolyte of Chayula Monk. I originally was trying to get it set up so that we could do Tempest Flurry and Tempest Bell as our bossing option, and then Storm Wave was supposed to be our clear mechanic. The problem is that the defenses for this guy is just... it's just not working out very well. Now, I've talked about it extensively. I don't really want to go too big into it here. The big thing that we're doing is we're not... I almost never use these at this point. The biggest things I'm using are Hand of Chayula. I'll lead off with Hand of Chayula, hop into Elemental Weak with I have it with Elemental Weakness and Hex Bloom to make it spread out, and then we just Tempest Flurry everything to death. And that works on pretty much everything, including bosses. Bosses still die pretty quickly with our Storm Wave here. And then, you know, there's a few other mechanics. I don't really want to go into a build guide, but this was our initial league start guy. And then, you know, I have a lot to say about that. Our second build was the Gigantic Minion Army Infernalist. This is an amazing, awesome build that I got from Kripparrian, who set this up so that basically you don't really do anything. You just have your minions killing everything, and you're just you know, regularly activating their abilities to get them to do cool stuff. I really like this build. It's a lot of fun. And the changes that they made to minions keeping up with you and kind of respawning as you move and if you get out of range, it kind of fixed the problem I had with minion builds in the beginning, where they would fall behind and they would stay there and you'd have to sit and wait for them to come back up. When you get a certain distance away, they'll disappear and respawn next to you, which is really, really nice. But yeah, for the most part, we don't have any spirit gems or anything like that. You're just cramming in as many different minions as you can and using this awesome this new muster skill that has you do more damage per monster equipped with this gem per different type of minion that you have on there. So this is one of the more fun builds. I'm looking forward to spending the league rotating through this character because it's just a lot of fun. And then the last build, which has quickly become my most favorite build, is my Flaming Fisher. It's not mine. It's Wooly's Flaming Fisher Warbringer. And my favorite thing about this is just the massive devastation that you're able to wreak with this character. So he doesn't look like much right now, but you toss down a Forge Hammer, hit it with your Infernal Cry, and then do Stampede, and holy crap, do things die. Man, this is the most fun build that I have played in a long time, and yeah, I consider this guy my main at this point because he's just so much fun. He does all the stuff that I wish my monk could do with the agile side of things. He performs as well as I wish I could get my monk to. And if I could get my monk to get the evasion and deflection, like if they could fix the evasion and deflection to help it with a lot more survivability, then the monk would be right on par with this guy. But the fact that he's just able to just blast through all of this stuff, it's just really, really sweet. So yeah, those are the builds that I'm using right now. I'm a casual player, and those are my builds. And I kind of wanted to give you a window into my thought process before we get started with the actual review of the game itself, because if you don't know where I'm coming from, the criticisms I have aren't going to make sense to you, or they're going to feel unjustified. So keep in mind that this is a casual's viewpoint of the thing here. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is the campaign, and I have to say that for whatever reason this time around, even for a League start, the campaign Acts 1 through 3 really felt a lot harder this time than they did in previous League starts. Now, part of that might just be the fact that I was trying to use a new type of build, and because the monk has survivability issues, it made the campaign take a lot longer. I literally spent 10 hours the first day just getting through Acts 1 through 3, and I've been through Acts 1 through 3 many times already with multiple characters. So the fact that I ended up having to take so long to get through that is partially due to the fact that I just kind of had a crappy build. But even with that, my knowledge of the fights should have allowed me to not have to repeat some of the bosses as many times as I did. And I think that maybe they changed some things with the way that the boss fights were between acts. My brain is telling me that there have been slight adjustments as the campaign has progressed, and they have said that they want to change the campaign with each league to make it a little bit fresh. And I feel like they went a little too far with this one, because it did take me a really long time, way more time than normal to get through the first 3 acts. So I don't know. That's how I felt about that. It kind of is what it is. Now that I've gone through it a little bit, had some currency, I'm able to upgrade my characters as I go. The second and third time I breezed through it because I had really good builds and really good gear. But the League start was pretty brutal, and I don't really want to have to do that every time we do a new League. Now, Act 4, I don't know. I have mixed feelings about Act 4 because on the one hand, it's a really cool area to be in, and it has some really interesting locations, and I really love the boat theme of it. As somebody who loves sailing myself, doing the whole, sailing around to different islands thing is really cool. And I feel like the issue that I have is just that there's nothing that really stands out about it. I think the only thing that really grabbed my attention in this entire setup here was the prison over here, because it has an interesting mechanic where the water rushes in. But everywhere else, I don't know, there's nothing that stands out as memorable to me. Even the final boss fight with the chieftain or whatever, it's hard. I had to fight him a bunch of times, but there's just nothing that, like, I don't know. I remember the boss fights from the first 3 acts because each of the boss fights had some kind of unique thing about the boss itself that really grabbed my attention. In Act 4, there are too many what feel like main bosses, and I think that might be what's causing the lack of a standout, because while the prison location is really cool, all of the bosses felt, even on replaying, all of the bosses kind of felt like main bosses, especially the last couple of bosses. And it just makes it to where you don't feel like you have a single solitary guy that you're supposed to defeat at the end. It feels like a chain of big bosses, and I don't know, that just didn't hit well with me. It didn't smack me in the face with a good feeling of like, wow, that was an awesome arc leading to a massive payoff at the end. It just, I don't know. I don't like the spread out nature of the way that the story went. Now, I have to say that the ability to choose where you want to go and have the level kind of change as you go was an absolute win in the, replayability department, because now if you don't want to go through the islands in the same order every time, you don't have to. That's really cool. And I have to say that the gear progression, or I don't want to say the gear, there are a couple of really cool, awesome gear items that you can get from the shark guy and the pearl and all that stuff that gives you some really powerful items that drastically help you out right when you're really needing some pretty decent gear. So I think overall Act 4 is pretty cool. I think it's a little bit long. I could do with a little bit of shortening of maybe making the zones a little bit smaller, maybe making a few of the boss fights a little bit less annoying. We'll talk about that here in a minute. Yeah. I don't know how I feel about it. It's a really mixed bag for me, because I love the moving around, I love the boat mechanic, but nothing really stands out, and the boss fights are just, I don't know, they all feel like they run together. Then you hop into the Interlude acts, and I have to say that I'm really impressed with their ability to take old content and turn it into something that actually feels kind of new. And what I mean by that is that they basically took all of the old assets from the previous campaigns and reskinned them and gave them a few new mechanics to make them feel like they're different without having to actually make them different. So the boss fights are pretty familiar, but when you fight some of the bosses that you recognize from Acts 1 through 3, they look a little bit different, and the mechanics that they have are definitely very different and unexpected the first time you fight them. And yeah, I had a couple of deaths to things I wasn't expecting to come out of those guys, which was actually pretty surprising and interesting. Interlude 1 is pretty easy, but Interludes 2 and 3 were just... I don't know, man. I have a new most annoying boss in the game. Napawatsi has been toppled from her pedestal. It is now Asmadi the Faradun Prince, because holy crap, he is he moves around way too much, and too many of his abilities are one-shots and very, very fast and hard to dodge. You need to have a really great geared character to be able to go through and, like, one-shot him. Like, that's just... He's super, super annoying and frustrating, and he needs to be tuned down quite a lot as far as I'm concerned. That's all I have to say about that. So, yeah, the campaign and the interludes and all of that stuff... Acts 1 through 3 are obviously the same, but they felt harder. And Act 4 I have some mixed opinions about, and the interludes are actually really cool. I really enjoyed them, but the couple of boss fights in there that were just really annoying just makes it frustrating to get through. Now, as far as the Endgame and the Abyssal League and all of that stuff, I have to say that for the most part, the Endgame hasn't changed at all. Maps are still maps. They haven't changed anything with it. There's a lot of new zone types now that they have Act 4 in there so that they can include all the Act 4 zones. That's cool and all, but the map specifically, the thing about maps is that, for me at least, there's certain maps I like doing, there's certain maps I really don't like doing. The big open maps I really like. The tight, closed-in, interior building maps I'm not really that big of a fan of. So I'm always trying to find the maps that are like the most interesting ones. Like, I really like going through the steppe. That's a lot of fun. But the crypt, not so much. But there's nothing new with the in-game mechanics, with the in-game maps or anything like that. So there isn't really anything to talk about there. Now, when it comes to the Abyssal League, though, I have to say I'm not a fan. Overall, I find that it makes the gameplay experience much more difficult, and the rewards I get from it really just don't justify some of the issues that I'm running into. Yeah, you get a pretty decent amount of gear. The Abyssal Troves that show up generally drop some pretty decent stuff. And the monsters themselves are generally pretty easy to kill. Where we start running into some issues are when the rares pop up during those things. In general, they're very, very difficult rares almost all of the time. And then sometimes they'll get a combination of attributes that makes them very difficult or sometimes impossible to kill. And what that ends up doing is makes it impossible to finish the Abyssal thing there. And that spreads over into the map itself when those random attributes on regular rares that you're supposed to kill also combine together. We'll talk about that here in just a little bit more. But overall, I find that the Abyssal League, I don't know, it makes my mapping experience feel less fluid, feel less continuous. It's not, when I see an Abyssal thing come up, depending on the character, I either have a mild annoyance when I see it, or I have oh crap, I have to avoid this part of the map because this character is going to die if I try to do this. So, I don't know, it's a little too hard. It's a little too hard. Everything's a little too tanky, does a little bit too much damage. The visual clarity makes it very difficult to see when things are going to hurt you, and a lot of those things that hurt you do a lot of damage. So there's just, like everything else in this game, there's just a little bit too much RNG when it comes to the Abyssal mechanic, and I'd say like 50% of the time, I don't know, 25% of the time I'll avoid it completely because it's just not worth it. Now, the Abyssal Depths mechanic that they have is kind of interesting, but I don't know. There's nothing bad about it. I don't want to say there's anything bad about it, but there's something about it that does make me just kind of avoid it completely. I've done it a few times, and then when I see it pop up, I'm just like, I don't feel like doing it. I don't know why. I don't have a logical reason. It's just some kind of a feeling that I have after having done it a few times, and I'm just like, I don't know, it feels like just another map to go do, but I don't ever feel like I get enough out of it to justify the extra time it takes. I'd rather just finish the map I'm on and move on to another one. I don't know. The rewards from the Abyssal Depths mechanic just aren't enough to entice me to go do them. I guess that's maybe what it is. I'm not quite sure about that. But yeah, the Abyssal overall is just kind of meh for me. They could take it out, and I would actually feel better about mapping if they just got rid of it. Now, I will say that my biggest complaint about the Abyssal mechanic is that A, it shows up way, way, way too often, and B, it shows up way, way, way too often during the campaign. And when you're low level, and especially in the League start, and you have constant Abyssals showing up that are difficult to overcome, you're like, dude, I'm just trying to get to the campaign. Can I not have this League mechanic getting in my way right now? I'm trying to get through this. So I would love to see the frequency of Abyssals during the campaign reduced quite a lot, and you know, maybe and leave it as it is now. I don't know. I don't feel like every map and every zone needs to have an Abyssal thing in it. It should be something that's relatively rare, so that when you come across it, it feels like it's more rewarding. I don't know. I feel like we're just interacting with this League mechanic way too much, and it's quite irritating to me. But yeah, that's it for the campaign and the maps and all of that stuff in the new League. I want to cover a couple of basic things like general positives and some criticisms that I have to close out this review. The new trade system, holy crap, man! I am a massive, massive, massive fan of this new trade system. It basically took the website version, put it into the game, and then made it to where you can instantly purchase the items. And holy crap, I've been waiting for this ever since I started playing Path of Exile. The ability to just say, hey, I want a new body armor. I want to be able to do level 80, and then you can come down here and set what price you want. Maybe I just want one exalted orb. And yeah, I'm looking for life, and I'm looking for some cold resistance. You do the search, and it pops up, and you go straight to their hideout, and it instantly allows you to just quickly purchase and then go back. It's game-changing. It's game-changing the way that I interact with trade in the game now. Because now, instead of having to message like 10 people to finally get one person to respond to me telling me they're ready to go, I can just instantly come to the hideout. I don't even have to carry the currency with me. It automatically pulls from my stash, which is, holy crap, that's... you don't think that that's a big deal, but it's a massive quality of life change. Massive, massive, massive quality of life change. The fact that I can just leave everything in my stash, and I instantly teleport, and I instantly can just purchase this and move it over and equip it immediately, and then I don't even have to teleport back. I can just hit leave hideout, and it brings me right back to my hideout. The streamlining. I appreciate when developers go out of their way to streamline processes, to remove unnecessary clicks and interactions and all of these things, and just get you straight to the point. I really appreciate the thought and care and time that went into the market here, because this right here is making me... I trade way, way more now. I actually trade during the campaign now. I never used to trade during the campaign. I actually trade during the campaign now towards the later acts so that I can buy gear, because I have enough exalted orbs that I can just buy some pretty cheap, decent, easy gear to quickly upgrade my character instead of having to wait for a drop or wait for a vendor or wait for this or wait for that. I just hop into the trade and find myself a really good weapon. Way, way better. So I have nothing but positive things to say about the new trade system. It is perfect as it is, at least for me. I know some people are going to have some issues with it. I have not run into a single problem with the trade site. It's really, really nice to be able to just do it in the game and instantly be able to purchase the things that are available. And it encourages me to trade a lot more than I used to, because I used to avoid trading like the plague and just sat with the gear that I had, because I just didn't want to have to like spend 20 minutes messaging people hoping that they would get back to me. So absolute win, perfect for what we need. Now, I know that the sprint mechanic in this game has drawn a lot of hate. Some people really, really dislike it a lot. Personally, I am 95%, well, I guess I can't say 95. I will say I am 90% happy with the sprint mechanic and 10% highly, highly unsatisfied with the sprint mechanic. And why? Well, some people don't like the slow turn radius. I'm fine with it. I've gotten used to it, and it kind of makes sense that you're not able to just instantly turn on a dime. And if you really need to instantly turn, you can just dodge roll in a new direction and go. So I don't really find the turn mechanic to be that much of an issue. I love that there's no stamina bar, so you can just endlessly sprint through the map, and it allows you to get through maps a lot faster. So as far as positives when it comes to that, I think that the sprint is absolutely an amazing feature. I'm glad they implemented it. But it has a couple of cons, and that's going to take me into my general criticisms now, and I'll kind of go out of order from what I wrote on the little thing over there because we're talking about sprint right now. First and foremost, obviously, the biggest thing that everybody hates is that when you get hit, you fall over and you lay on the ground for several seconds. It's not even just like you fall on the ground for like a second, then you have to quickly get back up, and, you know, while you're doing that, you're vulnerable. You fall down, you lay down, you stay there for like a second, and then it takes you another second to get back up, and I have been killed many, many times by accidentally getting hit by this, rolling, because you don't see, like, you're running through the map, and all of a sudden something's there, you don't see it, and then it smacks you, and you just roll over, and then everything just kind of descends on you and kills you. There's nothing you can do because you can't move, you're heavy stunned, and it's really, really frustrating. I don't have a problem with there being some kind of a stun mechanic that knocks you out of your sprint. I think that the duration of it needs to be drastically reduced. There should be a penalty. I don't know. I don't know that there should be a penalty, but I'm willing to compromise with there being a penalty with the sprint mechanic. It's just the penalty is way, way more than the benefit that you're getting out of sprinting. The whole purpose of sprinting is not necessarily to avoid monsters, it's to cover distance, and they seem to want to discourage the use of the sprint mechanic with the penalty that they've put in. So I think it really needs to change. The other thing that I really don't like is that the timing, using the dodge roll button as our initiation of the sprint seems good on the surface. The problem is that if you're trying to dodge roll out of the way of stuff and you're like really trying to move through the map, like maybe you don't want to fight a bunch of monsters and you're just trying to dodge roll through them, or you're just trying to dodge roll in general. Sometimes what ends up happening, you'll start sprinting by accident if you don't pick your thumb up fast enough from the spacebar, and then you get knocked down and then you die. So I would either like to see the sprint mechanic take a little bit longer so that you don't accidentally hold it down, or preferably just have a new keybind for the sprint button. It can still do the dodge roll, right? But the button by itself does the dodge roll and sprints, and then your dodge roll button is just dodge rolls. Something like that, just to add a little bit more, a little more control over your character, rather than it being something where you accidentally start sprinting when you weren't intending to because you held the button down a little bit too long. You can call that a skill issue if you want, but that's just a fundamentally bad approach to doing it. If you know anything about process improvement, you know that you design things to make it so that mistakes are as unlikely as possible. So if you're designing anything, whether it's a video game or a system or a process or whatever it is that you're doing at work, you should always be looking at potential problems and removing the likelihood of those things happening from your process. So yeah, you can overcome it by just training yourself to only tap the spacebar when you want to dodge and holding it down when you want to run, sure. But the correct approach to designing something like this is to remove accidents as much as possible. And the way you do that with this is to actually change the key, make it a different keybind. You can keep the dodge functionality. I think that's kind of cool, but, you know, dodge should be one button, sprint should be a different button. That's just the way it should be. Now, as far as currency in the game, I have to say that some of you guys get lots and lots of currency and you guys have nothing bad to say, and you criticize people who say something about it. When it comes to anything RNG related, I always have the worst luck in the world. I never find the currency I need. These are the sockets that I have now, and it's taken me this long and 3 characters to get these sockets. I mean, you know, it's just, what are you supposed to do with that? What are you supposed to do with that when you're just not getting currency? It's very hard to progress. It's very hard to progress when you're not getting the currency that you need to be able to do things. And then I'm still struggling with, you know, basic currency here. I have almost no chaos orbs. I haven't even found a divine orb yet in 3 characters. I feel like the drop rates need to be, what's the word I'm looking for? The drop rates need some kind of attenuation so that some people don't get incredibly lucky and some people don't get incredibly unlucky. Now, I don't know how you fix that, but there needs to be some kind of a formula that makes it so that if you've been getting a lot of really cool stuff, or like they do it with the evasion, right? They say that evasion has some kind of attenuation to it, to where if you're dodging a lot, your evasion rating comes down so that you will get hit at some point. And I think that players need to have that too. There needs to be a curve. If you're a character that gets a lot of stuff, then your drop rates need to go down. And those of us who almost never find anything, you know, if we're having a run of bad luck, the drop rate needs to increase a lot, so that, you know, your personal luck rate in real life doesn't determine whether you're able to get gear. I have always had an issue with acquiring currency in the game, and it's really even basic currencies like the exalted orbs. When I find a divine orb, I instantly transform it into exalted orbs, because I don't find enough divine orbs, and I don't acquire enough exalted orbs to continue buying things when I want to buy them. So currency definitely still needs some work. The balance isn't there. Some people are having a really great time. Some of us are having a really bad time, and it's consistent. So there's clearly a problem there. The last criticism I want to talk about is something that has been bothering me ever since we started this league, and it is the constant graphical freezes as we're playing the game. Now, they say, I heard someone else say that it is a rendering problem, because I guess they added a new, or they switched over to a new renderer for the game, and that's causing the game to freeze up. It'll pause the game when that freeze happens, and then you're in the middle of a fight and you're just like, or there's just constant little lags. It feels like network lag. I know it's not my internet connection, because several times when it starts happening frequency, I'll go do a bandwidth test. I'm getting almost a gigabit per second, even on my T-Mobile home internet system, and my uploads are upwards of like 40, 50 megabits per second. So it's not my internet connection. I know it's not my internet connection. You can check the network stuff and it will spike, but it doesn't seem to be spiking that hard. It feels like a network connection, but I think it is probably this render thing that they have, and they really need to fix it like ASAP, because it's super frustrating to be in the middle of a big fight and then the game just stops, and then all of a sudden you're just rushing around the map as the renderer tries to catch up with what you're trying to do, because it doesn't actually pause your inputs and it doesn't pause the game. It just pauses rendering for sometimes 3 or 4 seconds, and then it just the rubber bands around everywhere. So they definitely need to fix that problem, because it is drastically frustrating. So yeah, that's my review of the game so far. I feel like it's way more fun than any of the previous content that we've had in the game. The new act is pretty interesting, though not very memorable, and the interlude acts were executed in a very awesome way that makes it feel like fresh content, even though it's technically repeat content. And then, you know, there are a bunch of annoyances in the game that may or may not be fixed in the future. I kind of doubt it, because they feel, or I don't say they feel, they are kind of design decisions from the developers, and they kind of feel married to those things, and we've been complaining about them for a while, and I don't know that they have any desire to fix it. So I don't know. But if your end goal after watching this 28-minute review of the game is to figure out whether you should start playing, I absolutely highly recommend it. I do tend to highlight negatives because I want to see them fixed, not because I hate the game. So I bring up issues and don't necessarily highlight the positives that much. But for the most part, this is the most fun league that we've had so far, the most fun patch that we've had so far. I'm having the most fun with the game than I've had so far, because of things like the trade and the sprint and, you know, just the new story elements and things like that. And while there are some really irritating things, the irritating things don't even come close to outweighing all of the positives that are now in the game. So I've gone from being kind of lukewarm about Path of Exile 2 to being absolutely enamored with the game, and I plan on continuing to play throughout the rest of the league, just because I'm having a lot of fun with it. So thanks for watching. Hit that like button, subscribe to help us reach 10,000 subscribers. Join as a member for early access to videos, or you can leave a tip with the thanks button. I also have PayPal and Patreon links for those of you who want to go outside of YouTube to help out with the channel. So again, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.